Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the addendum number 2 for the Su-25T Cadet series. After the recent update, the Mercury port is now usable. When DCS World 2.9 was introduced, the Mercury port was bugged. Now it works, but the Mercury port are no longer the Mercury port we remembered pre 2.9. Before DCS World 2.9, the Mercury port was a thermal port. Now it is a light intensifying port. And in broad terms, what is the difference between thermal port and light intensifying port? Okay. Light intensifying means that it is a electronic that intensifies the light that is surrounding it, or there is around it. That is commonly known as night vision. You know, that green stuff. That green stuff is light intensifying. It also means that for it to work properly, it needs to be dark, but there also needs to be light that it can intensify. If there are no lights, you cannot see anything, literally anything in light intensifying port. I want to give you an example from real life. During my army time, I were in the combat troops by the Jutland Dragoon Regiment in Holstebro, and we were combat troops through and through. That means no matter the weather, we were out in the field. When entirety of Denmark was closed down due to snowstorm and freezing temperatures, we were literally out on exercise. When there were massive hurricanes across Denmark, we were out on exercise. We were in the highest of summers, the deepest of winters. I was a Dragoon for 2.5 years with deployment to Iraq, DENCON Team 8. So I know the difference between light intensifying, that green stuff, and thermal. One specific episode I remember vividly, even to this day, almost 20 years later, when using light intensifying. We were doing a patrol in a typical Danish forest that is pine and spruce, a mix of that, and we had our monogoggles on. That means that I have my monogoggle on my right eye. I was shooting with my right eye. That means that when I put my weapon up to my shoulder and I aim through my sight, I was using my monogoggle. The left eye I have free with no contamination at all, so I maintained natural night vision on that eye. When we were shooting, you close that eye to maintain that natural night vision. The forest we were walking in was so absolutely pitch black that we could literally not see anything with that light intensifying monogoggle. We could literally not see our hands when we stretch out our arms. We walked with the right hand on your weapon and the left hand grabbed at the body ahead of you in his rucksack. That was the only way you knew that you were going behind your bodies. The front guy was moving exceptionally slow. We're talking about a few hundred meters per hour, because we were on patrol, therefore you were absolutely quiet. That night I realized how important it is for light intensifying to have any kind of light. as soon as we stepped out of that forest, we were in the open with marshland and open plains and fields, and we have a relative plenty of light. You can use them again. I've also been on exercise with over a meter of snow in our practice area, training area, where there was too much light during the night, so we could not use our light intensifying. It actually hurt in your eyes, so much light was there from the snow and the bright moon, and even just stars. That is why it is very important to know the limitation of both thermal and light intensifying. Of course, we also used thermal, but it was a military issue. That means it was heavy, bulky, noisy. I would not say reliable. It is an army gear, so it is not reliable. There is just a company who made billions on that. But you could always buy stuff for civilian use that was many times better than anything we had in our army. But it is a common myth that thermal sees heat. In no way, any shape or form, does it see heat. Thermals shows you temperature differences. Anything that is bright, hot, as Hollywood says, could be minus 20 Celsius. The bright spot is only a way for the electronics to visualize the highest difference in temperature. So if the air is minus 40 and the object is minus 20, there is a massive difference between that. Therefore, the less cold object will appear like it's glowing red hot. It is not. It is just a way for the electronics to visualize it. Thermals are very, very good at seeing temperature differences. That means if you look at a forest, it does not matter if it's day or night, no light, bright sunshine in the Iraqi desert. It does not matter. The thermal port does not care. But just the temperature difference between tree trunk, branches, leaves, the 4 trees that stands out from the edge and then inward, just that difference is so much clearer in a thermal pot. It is so easy to see. We also practice that some guys was running 100 meters down behind a ridge. They were running because they then heated up, laid down behind the ridge or in the ditch, just low enough so we couldn't see them. The radiation, the body radiation, we could see in the thermals. So it is minute differences thermals can show you. The further up, the further to the, or the closer to the edge of that ditch they were, we could suddenly see a kind of aura, like a Jesus ring around their head, because their body heat was so strong compared relative to the air temperature. In Iraq, the very same person doing the very same exercise, they were much harder to spot because the temperature difference between their radiated body heat and the air temperature was much, much less. Also, the humidity in Iraq during the summer was around 3 to 5%, so practically nothing. So there was less material or less moisture in the air to be heated up that could be picked up by the thermals. That is the difference between light intensifying, that green stuff, and thermal. now we know what a massive difference the new Mercury port is. The new Mercury port is, as I said, light intensifying. That means we can no longer use it in the daylight. We are locked to using it at night or in the dark, where there is either enough ambient or atmospheric illumination, or the object we are observing is providing its own illumination for us to see. Before that we could see everything 24/7. Even a cold vehicle that was in position, because let's say a cold tank that has been in position for a day is still hotter or colder than the sand around it. Metal and sand does not have the same heat radiation. Therefore, thermoport can see them. It is harder because the difference is much smaller. So we lost a massive advantage with that update on the Su-25T. Yes, the pod has become more realistic, that is correct, but it is not funny to lose that thermal capability. Okay, now I want to show you a practical practical visualization of how to use the thermal port. Or it is not a thermal port, Brian, it is a light intensifying. We had that thermal port for over a decade now, and suddenly we lost it. For realism. I'm going to active pause and radio. I believe that it is only in active pause you can see my mouse cursor, and I do not know why, but yeah, that is just the way it is. The keys you need to have bound for this port is night vision, FLIR or LLTV on off. That turns on the Mercury port and turns it off. As you can see, it is called a FLIR. It is actually technically not a FLIR, it is a thermal, or LLTV, low light TV. Low light TV does not mean anything at all. It is like saying my car runs on fuel. Okay, which kind of fuel? It doesn't matter, it's just fuel. So LLTV or night vision does not mean anything at all. That is the button you need for that. And one more. If, as you can see here, my cockpit is glowing red, that is because I have illumination cockpit on. That turns on the illumination of your dials. This is off and this is off. And if you look at the HUD, if that HUD is too bright, you can use HUD brightness up, HUD brightness down, or you can use HUD color. HUD color changes between green now and yellow and red. It depends on who you are, which color you like. I have that button bound to HUD color filter on off because I primarily fly in daylight, and filter is that yellow tint, that plate that pops up. It can be easier to read the dial in clouds with that on. Okay, here we are. We're heading towards our target, and we are 38 kilometers away from our target. 38.3. And I'm gonna straight and level flight towards our target. And I'm going to air to ground mode. Air to ground mode, and turn on the Mercury port. Give it a few seconds, and over here you see now it is a low light intensifying. As you see, it is gray here, and in the West we often have green. The color does not matter. it doesn't tell you anything. In the West, our thermals is often gray like this, but it does not mean that this is a thermal, and it is not. As you can see here, the controls and bindings for zooming in and out is the exact same as with the Squall. Radar or display zoom out, radar display zoom in, and you have target designate up, down, left, right, and I have log, or I have center also. But the way you move it and the symbology is the exact same. Let's go into active pause once again, and just for a broad overview, and I really hope that you can see my mouse cursor now. Over here, top right is your altitude above ground in radio altimeter. Up here is how much this sensor is looking deviated from your course. That means if I slew my sensor over here, you can see right now I'm 10 degrees to the left of my flight path. Each line up here is 10 degrees, so 10, 20, 30, 40. And I can slew back. Now I know that I'm roughly flying towards that marker. Over here, that little number 10 is indicating how big my target designator box is. We also need that button. Target size decrease and target size decrease. The purpose of that is that when you try to lock, the sensor or the weapon system will try to lock onto a object that fills out this square box. Therefore, if your square box have that target touching, let's say, the sides, it will be much easier to lock that target. If your target is just a ground target, well, just make it as small as possible. Over here to the left, we have elevation cues. That is, each line here is 10 degrees. The big line here is the horizon, so 10 degrees, 20 degrees up, and all the way to 80 degrees, I believe it is. Descent down. And this number 7, as we can see over here, is our pitch angle. This number 7 now is our pitch angle. The dotted line here is the horizon, and the solid line here is our wings, to give us a visualization of how we are either rolling to the left or right, going up or going down. Okay, as you can see here on the monitor, everything that is lit up, every light, physically, light, electronic light, or electric light, lights up very, very bright, almost blinding us. That also indicates that we are using a light intensifier, because as you can see in the trees, they are almost pitch black. The reason we can see them is due to the ambient light, the moonlight, starlight, or the artificial light around it. If this was a thermal, we would be able to see them much clearer, plus that bridge with the iron above it on a concrete road would be lit up, in quotation marks, differently, because heat, or no, metal and concrete does not retain and dissipate heat at the same rate. Now we cannot see anything. And as we get closer, let's speed up a bit. Let's ground stabilize it. We are 24 kilometers, 28 kilometers away. As you can see, we cannot see any of the vehicles. You can see two dark patches on the runway. That is the skid marks, the touchdown zones. But you cannot see any of the vehicles because this is not a thermal port. That is the biggest problem with changing the Mercury port from a thermal port to a light intensifying port. Suddenly you lost all that capability. Now slowly you can begin to see black dots, but only because there is atmospheric light. There is moonlight, starlight, artificial light. Before that, they would light up or lit up like little Christmas trees all around here. Now we do not have that capability anymore. Therefore, tactically, we have been very limited by that upgrade or change. So, how to do it, how to use it? Simply just like the Squall. Put your target designator on the target, have the ground stabilized, wait until the weapon system or weapons control system can spot the target, and up here in the HUD you see that little round dot. That is your target designator. To be able to fire your Squall, put your Squall seeker cone inside that, and since we are not using see a missile there, you can see the missile. You can see the glow from the missile, and we are still not locked on the target because the sensor cannot see it. Yes. You can see the plume, yes, and now it turns off. You saw the second that the rocket engine burned out on that rocket, you couldn't see it anymore because it is not a thermal port. I know I'm keep saying that because I want to emphasize the massive change it have done, changing it from a thermal port to a light intensifying port. And also now we know all the disadvantages of it. The advantages is that if the enemy is stupid enough to drive around with their lights on, you can clearly see them as dots on a line from many kilometers away. But if they are intelligent enemies, they will not be using lights during the night. So that is how to use the new Mercury port, the limitations and the importance of changing its category.